Hello and welcome to the Adventure Film Podcast. This is a recorded discussion between me, Garen Ewing, and my brother Murray Ewing, and we are talking about 10 classic adventure films. This is the 9th one we're doing. The previous ones we've done have been King Kong, The Man Who Would Be King, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Hidden Fortress, Lawrence of Arabia, Time Bandits, Lost Horizon, and Raiders of the Lost Ark was the last one. So this one we're doing the 1935 version of Rider Haggard's She. And the basic idea behind this was just sort of to look at 10 classic adventure films. They're sort of 10 of my favourite films. I didn't think in great detail about them. It's just, although they are sort of perennial favourites and they are sort of recognised as classics amongst quite a number of people, I think it's fair to say. So we're looking at them and kind of using it as a basis to discuss adventure films and the whole sort of thing about what makes a really good adventure. So as I said, I'm Garen Ewing. Just to introduce myself quickly, I'm a comic artist and writer. I've got an adventure comic called The Rainbow Orchid, and my co-discusser of these films is my brother Murray.
Hello, I'm Murray. I write fantasy, science fiction, horror type stories, and I have a blog called Musings, in which I sometimes discuss films like this.
So there will be spoilers, as with all these. We're discussing the film. I mean, they're quite old films. You've either seen them or know the stories, especially with She. I think a lot of you will, if you're listening to this, probably know the story very well. So we should say it, though, there will be spoilers. So is this the first time you've seen the 1935 version of She?
I think it is, yeah. I must have seen... I've got vague memories of seeing the Hammer version with Ursula Andress.
Yes.
And I really wanted to see it again to compare it. But
I was thinking that. I thought. I mean, in my head with these things, I prepare greatly. I've also got some of the silent versions. I was going to watch those. I was going to watch the Hammer version and be full of facts. Unfortunately, we're both quite busy with stuff. It's very difficult to find the time. But you read the book as well? Yeah,
also again, quite a long time ago. I mean, over 10 years.
Yeah, I read the book. I mean, I think my introduction was the Hammer version, of course.
Yeah.
What year was that? It was 60s, wasn't it? I mean, I saw it on TV.
Yeah.
I wasn't around until 1966 or something. I'll have to double check that.
I seem to remember it was quite a big production for them, even for them,
Yeah.
So it was
Ursula Andress, now she had been in the Bond film.
Of course,
Dr. No by then, so she was a major star. So similar with 1 Million Years BC, they had some money, and so they got Rebecca Welsh for that. They had Ursula Andress for She.
But I do seem to remember in that She, or maybe it's King Solomon's Mines, I'm thinking actually, there was a long sequence of them crossing the desert, which isn't the sort of thing you usually get with Hammer.
That is in that version of She.
Yeah.
I mean, that version is set just after World War One.
Oh.
And it's got Peter Cushing as Holly.
Yeah.
It's got Bernard Cribbins as, I guess he's Job. And then I don't know the actor who plays Leo Vinci.
Some bland male lead.
Yeah, I mean, they're in North Africa somewhere after the First World War, and she actually appears in the city they're in. Leo Vinci gets kidnapped because one of her people recognise him as the person they're looking out for, her lost lover or whatever.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it for years and years, so I'm maybe getting this slightly wrong. But I remember she appears in the room, and I think then they travel to the city where she's at. They sort of meet up with her there.
Yeah. Perhaps they felt they needed to get their star in quickly, just to say, she is going to appear.
I bet that's the reason, that must be the reason. Yes.
People are paying good money for Ursula Andress.
Because, but that's one of the good things about the story is it's called She, the book, and she doesn't appear for a little while, but of course there's that great anticipation.
Yeah.
Who is this she?
Yeah.
So when you do things like that sort of commercial decision to get your star, you lose something.
Yes.
By it. Anyway, we're talking about the 1935 version. This was produced by RKO, who just 2 years previously had done King Kong, which was the first adventure film podcast was about that.
Yeah.
And this was in the wake of the success of Kong.
Right.
That sort of revitalised the sort of slightly fantasy adventure thing.
It did have the same producer, didn't it? Merian C. Cooper.
Yes, and Kong was his sort of baby, if you like.
Weird.
It's been a difficult birth. Yes, there's a few people. So Ruth Rose, she was one of the screenwriters, she sort of reshaped the script of Kong into something that was,
Right, yeah.
that became successful. That was her first job, I think. And then she is one of the screenwriters on She.
Yeah.
The music's by Max Steiner, who we've had a few times. Well, he did the music for Kong. He did the music for The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. And I don't think he did the music for Lost Horizon. Was it Lost Horizon? He was the music director.
Oh, right.
Or something.
Yeah.
I hope I've remembered that correctly. So he's been popping up in quite a few of these.
Yeah.
There's a little fact I like about the music of this, and I'm pretty sure it's this film, was that I think the score to She was the first... this is really dodgily remembered, but I think it was the first recorded use of a Hammond organ.
Oh, really?
Well, when you say "oh, really," I've now got to double check that, but I'm pretty sure I heard that fact on an interview or something about Max Steiner. Well, I'll put that in the blog just to check that later.
I suppose the thing to say to start off is the novel was published in... Well, it was serialised first between October 1886 and January 87. Then it was published as a novel in 1887. And I sort of associate it with... There was that came out, She came out, and shortly after there was The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and then there was Dracula. And it's sort of like there's a really classic set of late Victorian thriller horror type novels.
Right. So were they all out in 1887?
No. She was first. I think Dracula might have been 1897.
Yes.
And of course, H.G. Wells wrote The Time Machine about then, so there's quite a chunk of really classic stories in. She is sort of like, and Dracula, they both, the very beginning of Dracula, where he goes to a foreign country, goes into this castle where there's this powerful man, and he gets trapped by immortal man. They're quite similar, really.
Yeah, I'd never thought of that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Of course, Rider Haggard was inspired by Treasure Island.
Oh.
Not for She, but he to write King Solomon's Mines. I think on a train journey with his brother, he was reading Treasure Island, and I think he made a bet with his brother. I can't remember who said you could and who said you couldn't, but it was to write a story as exciting as Treasure Island, and that resulted in King Solomon's Mines. And I don't know what year that was, but She was not long after that, I guess. Yeah. And of course, harks back to Rider Haggard was had his formative years in Africa, so that was the area he knew. Yeah. And the book takes place in Africa. This film adaptation, they've moved it to
the Arctic.
Yeah, or I mean, do they actually say the Arctic?
Well, they say
Muscovy.
Muscovy, that's it.
And the north.
I was quite impressed, but they do say, Muscovy used to be, Moscow, Russia, and
Siberia, all that lot.
So
but when they're there, they just refer to it as the North.
Oh, right.
But in articles and things I've read about it, they say they're in the Arctic, which I guess I don't know if that's the Arctic Circle or. I don't know my geography well enough to.
And in fact, one thing that links... I mean, the next film we're going to do is The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. But another Sinbad film, The Eye of the Tiger, they go to Hyperborea, which is the Greek myth of a land far in the north where there's a ring of mountains, and inside it is a temperate region with a city of advanced people. Right. That seems to be a myth that's
is that the
around.
land world of Conan as well? Did he use...
Hyboria.
Oh, close.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
One thing I thought about the Arctic, I was wondering, why did they change it? I just wondered if it was partly to contrast it with Kong.
I think
if it was in Africa, they might have, even though that would be desert, the Hollywood version of Africa is jungles with Tarzan and so on.
And I don't think it's just Kong. In the wake of Kong, there are a whole load of jungle films.
Oh, right.
Everyone started doing them. There's quite a few from that period, and I think, although they wanted to do some sort of fantasy high adventure, I think that you're probably right. That is the reason they didn't want more jungle. Yeah. They want to stand out from that, and
it does actually suit it thematically.
It does, yeah.
It's a frozen. She is frozen.
Oh yes.
She's like an ice queen. Yeah. She's frozen in this period of time.
It really suits it. It really fits very well. I don't mind the putting it in a different place at all. What else about this film? It was intended to be filmed in colour originally. Yes. And in fact, now I've seen this film quite a few times, and I had it on DVD, just a simple British DVD.
That's what I watched.
Which is what I gave to you. Which is just, am I right? There's no extras. It's just black and white.
Yeah.
But because I like it so much, I decided to buy the better version from the States, which has got a colorized version on it, and the black and white, and some extras and a commentary, which I didn't listen for this. I wish I had time to. It's Ray Harryhausen is
Yeah.
involved. And I thought, I'm basically against colorization of films because
Yeah.
it's not the original thing. I really actually love black and white films. They look
Yeah.
nice. The whole thing about them is part of the is part of the joy of watching it for me, actually. But I thought, because I've seen it so many times, I will watch the colorized
Right.
version for this. And I didn't actually realise this film was intended to be in colour. So the people who did the colorization, Legend Productions, they felt as though they were actually completing the original vision.
Oh, right.
But anyway, still, it's not great.
No.
I was watching it and thinking, I prefer the black and white, actually.
Yeah.
Until it got to a scene which is the big dance scene.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to say that.
And, I mean, it is actually quite well done because it's subtle.
Yeah.
But her dress, She's dress, is this lovely yellow-orange. It just looks really stunning, I thought.
Right.
And so it's not terrible by any means. And I think sort of saying that it was going to be originally in colour,
Yeah.
then, a lot of things you say, well, the director's original, when he made the film, he knew it was going to be in black and white. You're playing with his intentions because he'll make certain decisions based on that. Whereas this director, now who was the director? Because there's two names.
Yeah.
Irving Pitchell and Lansing Holden.
Yeah.
Anyway, directors intended to do it in colour, so maybe that's the reason. But they didn't have the budget
Yeah.
at the time.
It'd be interesting to know if there were some reference materials from back then to know which colours they'd chosen. Yeah, that would feel a bit more authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously,
yeah.
there's the posters are all in lovely colour, so they
Yeah.
might have got see what colour her dress was from there, for
Yes.
instance.
I think one thing that can be said is that there were very good intentions behind the colorization. It's not like I remember you can get, when I used to buy Laurel and Hardy films on video, you could buy the black and white or the colorized version. Of course, I
Yeah.
never bought the colorized. I mean, what's the point in that?
Yeah.
Whereas this, you can see there was some intention behind it,
Yeah.
and I think, as I say, Ray Harryhausen was involved, so they got someone in who sort of loved the film.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's fine. Talking of directors, I looked up a little about them. And Irving Pitchell, now he directed, I don't know if you know this, The Most Dangerous Game.
Oh, right.
You watched that, didn't you, recently?
I haven't even finished watching it because it's part of Love Films, so you can watch it streaming.
Okay.
It's only like an hour long, which makes me feel as though some of it's been cut,
But that was one of the precursors to King Kong.
Yeah.
It had Fay Wray in it.
And also the same, shared a few actors. I think the
And
same.
he shared some dinosaurs.
Probably.
The dinosaurs, actually.
Yeah.
I think the sets and dinosaurs were reused for King Kong.
Carl Denham actor, that's it. He's.
And he also did a film that I remember watching and enjoying was Destination Moon in 1950. Irving Pitchell directed that. That was quite... The other guy, Lansing Holden, he was one of the production illustrators on She. So I don't know... There's not much information on what his role was.
I wonder if he did the dance sequence or something.
No, no. I maybe directed it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I think there is a name for the choreographers on that. So he was a production illustrator, but one of the interesting things, he was a World War I flying ace in the First War, and he got the Distinguished Service Cross, DSC. He also won the Légion d'honneur in the Fifth War in the 1920s as a pilot. And then he went to Hollywood and got briefly involved in a few films. And then he went back to the Air National Guard in New York. And he was actually killed in a plane crash trying to land in bad weather in 1938.
Wow.
So he was really interesting. Although at first I couldn't find any information about him from film. But he's actually more famous as an air ace. In fact, he's not linked on the Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
But there is a Wikipedia article about him. It's just that he's under Lansing Holden instead of Lansing C. Holden, which is obviously his film name. But his Hollywood bit is just a footnote almost.
Oh, and another thing about this film is only because Buster Keaton had a print of it that we have this film.
Yes.
Apparently.
Apparently he had one in his garage.
Yeah.
Now, She is played by Helen Gahagan.
Yeah.
And she's very interesting because this was her only Hollywood film, and she went into politics, which is also interesting.
Oh,
but
right.
while she was running for Congress, she tried to buy up all the prints of She because she didn't think it'd be good for her image to be associated with this woman who hands out the death penalty at the blink of an eye.
Terror.
Yes, but she didn't succeed, luckily. Although I do wonder if that contributed to the scarcity of the prints. I don't know. I mean, maybe she didn't. Maybe it was a thought, and she didn't actually do any. I don't know the details.
A bit like Randolph Hearst and Orson Welles.
Oh, Citizen Kane. Oh,
yeah.
right, yeah. So that's interesting. And we may as well go through the cast. So, yeah, Helen Gahagan plays She, or Hashemotep.
And she used to be an opera star, I think.
Oh, right,
She certainly got that
she
sort
was
of
stage.
Stagey dignity.
It was stage that made her famous, and this was her only film role, as I said, yeah. So, yeah, afterwards she got into politics, and she was a Democratic congresswoman for California, and she, from 1945 to 51, she had an affair with Lyndon B. Johnson, who, of course, later became President of the United States, and she was up against Richard Nixon for the Senate in 1950.
Really?
Yeah, and Nixon and his crew did a smear campaign against her and called her the Pink Lady, because for her, calling her a red and a commie.
Oh,
so
right.
She was pink down to her underwear, I think he said. And in return, sort of, Helen Gahagan coined the term Tricky Dick, which of course became very apt later in the Watergate affair. And she lost against Nixon, unfortunately. Returned to acting for a bit, but then supported John F. Kennedy against Nixon in 1960. So she was, a good Democratic congresswoman. Very, very interesting life.
Yes.
Apart from She, of course, which was really just a small part of her career.
Yeah, part of her CV.
Randolph Scott plays Leo Vinci.
Yeah.
He was mostly known for westerns.
Yeah.
But he's quite good in this, isn't he? I think. I mean, it's a difficult part.
Yeah.
Because you look at the Hammer one.
Yeah.
The Leo Vinci role in that is difficult. Even if you read the book, he's a bit wishy-washy.
Right.
It's Holly who's the interesting character. Who's the one who's got character. But I think Randolph Scott does okay in this for the part.
I think there are a few moments where I felt maybe they were filming this quickly, but they tripped over the dialogue a bit.
Yeah.
I wasn't completely convinced by the acting generally. Maybe it was just...
It's difficult because, of course, the period is part of it.
Like compared to King Kong, where there's an awful lot of action and you're driven along by the cinematic image, here a lot rested on what the characters say, their relationships, the ideas. I
think part of that does also come from the book.
Yes.
Overall, and the same with this film, for me, I watch it, or when I read the book, you think that was brilliant. But during it, there are bits you think, oh, it's a bit dull. I mean, in the book, She has got some speeches that just go on forever and are dull, really.
Yeah.
But the overall effect afterwards, you remember her.
Yeah.
And it's the same in this, I think. So anyway, and he also served in World War One. I just think this is interesting. You've got this generation of people. I'd use this in The Rainbow Orchid. It's set in the 1920s, and I find it fascinating that here's a generation of people who have lost people in World War One, or survived World War One, or gone through it.
Yeah.
And the other one, Nigel Bruce, who plays Holly, he served in the First World War and got 11 bullets in the leg. He was wounded, and obviously that was the end of the war for him.
It's funny, as soon as I saw him, I thought, I bet he's played Dr. Watson. And he has.
Oh, that's his famous role.
Yeah.
We used to watch on a Sunday afternoon those Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
And so I remember him.
That's probably at some point I remember.
So you thought he bet he's played Watson without knowing that?
Yeah, well, it was probably a distant memory, that moustache, that accent.
Well, his Watson was quite bumbling and sort of a bit simple-minded, which goes against the books, of course, and a lot of Sherlock Holmes fans are not happy with that.
Right.
But he was so strong in the role, he's so well known for it, that a lot of people think Watson is this bumbling idiot.
Right, yeah.
And it's all thanks to him, or it's his fault, if you like.
Yeah.
But that was the Dr. Watson that came later. That was 1939 to 46, so it was radio and film.
Oh, right.
And some interesting stuff about Nigel Bruce. Although She was intended to be in colour and wasn't, he was in the first Technicolor film, which I think was the same year.
Oh, right.
A little bit earlier, so 1935.
Yeah.
And he was in the first 3D film. a film called Buona Devil, which was 1952, and that kicked off the whole 1950s 3D craze in the States. And this is a really tenuous link with another adventure film that we've done. See if you get it. I think you will as soon as I say it. But he was in another 1935 film called The Man Who Broke the Bank at Monte Carlo. Do you know what film that connects with?
Is it Treasure of the Sierra Madre?
No, I thought you might get it, actually.
No.
It's Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, really?
Do you remember the scene where now I'm going to have to double check. He sings that, and it echoes around the.
Yes, and
so very tenuous link, but I quite like those sort of things. Of course, the song was a 19th century song, and that film was inspired by the song, not the other way around, of course, because that's the First World War. So it can't have been.
Yes.
And I think the last main actor was the guy who played Bilali, is Gustav von Seifritz.
All right.
German actor, in case you didn't guess. What do you think of Bilali?
I thought, looking at he had a really good combination of being this ancient Egyptian sort of high priest and an English butler. He sort of walks around sort of, she's told me to do this. He had this air of resignation, but he's going to do it anyway. He was. I thought he was
she
quite
who must
good.
be obeyed.
Yeah.
Do you know who he reminded me of?
No, tell me.
An English comedian. Tommy Cooper. I got that. No, I can't do a Tommy Cooper impression.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, she.
She who must be obeyed.
Yeah, he's got a Sherlock Holmes connection as well, and he played Moriarty in 1922 silent film against John Barrymore, Sherlock Holmes. So anyway, so that's the cast.
And of course there was Tanya as well.
Oh, mustn't forget Tanya. Yes, now she's interesting because she's not in the book.
Yes.
Although she's kind of substitute for Ustane or Ustani, I don't know how that's pronounced. Yes, they pick her up in. She's with her father in the Arctic. Yeah. Dugmore. So I guess she's Tanya Dugmore. Yeah, she appeared in Son of Kong, 1933, and later became a radio director and TV writer.
Oh, right.
It's quite interesting, so yes, she's the sort of love interest apart from she.
She's like the anti-she.
Yeah. Yes. So that's quite a lot of background to the film there, but that's one of the things that's very interesting about this film is the background, I think.
I mean, one thing that struck me almost straight away was the fact that you had English accents. Obviously,
yes,
it's, Haggard is an English author. Well, English author.
And this is an American film, though. It's quite funny when the American Randolph Scott, Leo Vinci, appears. He's introduced and he comes in and says, "Confound your English fog." Yeah. To say, and that lets us know that he's American and that we're in England to set the scene.
And it has been foggy today, actually.
It's been very foggy, yes.
I'm a man of science. I'm not superstitious. If I were, I might imagine that your resemblance to a man dead nearly 500 years is fate's way of showing me that you will find again what he discovered.
What is that, sir?
The means of overcoming man's enemy.
Man's enemy?
My enemy, your enemy. The enemy of all living things.
Careful, John.
That is what I mean, Leo. That is the swinging march of man's enemy. Time, bringing death. Invisible, relentless death.
So anyway, should we start there? Let's talk about the actual story. So it opens with John Vinci, who's the uncle of Leo Vinci, and he's at death's door. He's dying.
Of radium poisoning. I also think it's quite interesting the way they update films and they bring in like the... I mean, radium... I came across this a while ago, so I looked it up again for this. Radium was discovered in 1898 by Marie Curie.
Oh, right.
And it went through a brief... Well, I say brief, it was quite a while actually, where people believed that radium, because it was this new thing, was wonderful. Everything, like you could buy radium toothpaste, radium water.
Brilliant.
I found this product, there's a picture on the internet of this product called Radithor, which was produced between 1918 and 1928. Oh, wow. And it was a tonic.
Right.
Water plus radium.
Oh, my God.
And there was this bloke, this American industrialist called Eben Byers, who drank it every day for 4 years. And...
He glowed in the dark.
And then he basically had cancer of the jaw.
Oh, my God.
And died of it.
Oh, that's awful.
And that was pretty much the end of the radium craze.
So that was the thing, was it? That...
Yeah, so...
Oh... Isn't it awful? When you think of these things that, and of course, Marie Curie died of radiation
But so we've got a bloke dying of radium poisoning.
He's been drinking too much.
Only 7 years after,
Yeah.
so it was something that was quite...
Now, of course, the reason he wasn't drinking, what was it called?
Radithor.
He had been trying to recreate the flame of eternal life. Now, I can't remember, even though I only saw the film yesterday. Had he seen it, or is it just from the...
They've read about it.
Yeah. So it's this unknown element, and they're trying to find out what that is.
Yeah.
And so his experiments with that and radiation have led to him dying, really.
Dying. Which is interesting, I suppose, actually, because, later on, the flame is linked to the death of She, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Now, of course, his partner in these experiments is Horace Holly.
Yeah.
He's not ill, though, is he? He's fine. I'm just leaving the room while you do that experiment. Back in a minute.
Yeah.
Played by Nigel Bruce, as we said. And he's the narrator of the book, in the book.
Right.
In the book, the setup is the John Vincey in this, the uncle who dies. In the book, he's Horace Holly's best friend, and he's dying, he's ill, and he's got a son who's been sent away. Anyway, basically he dies after making Horace Holly promise to bring up his son, who I think is 5 years old to begin with. So Horace Holly brings up Leo Vincey, and on his either 18th or 21st birthday, they open this box that the father has bequeathed, said don't open it till he's, I think it might be 21. And of course that's got the family history in it, being their connection back to...
I think it's Roman times in the book, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's because the ancestor is an ancient Egyptian.
Oh, right.
I think. Kallikrates.
That's it, yes.
And he falls in love with a woman whose name I can't remember. Begins with A, I think. Anyway, but also in this triangle is She, or Asha, as she actually, as her name in the book, or Aisha, as the Hammer film says, and that's how it's spelled.
That's how it's spelled,
but it's
actually explained in the book that you pronounce
there's a footnote that says
Yeah.
Asha, and I always remembered that. And then I worked with a cleaner at Dunning's Mill when I was a cleaner there, and there was an Indian woman there called Aisha, and her husband called her Aisha, spelt the same. I'm pretty sure. So anyway, that's the background to that, is ancient Egypt, and I think Asha kills Kallikrates through jealousy of his love with this other woman. The other woman escapes. She's pregnant with Kallikrates' child to, I think, Greece.
Right.
And they grow up and come down through time.
Yeah.
And Asha is Arabic. She's an Arabic woman in that.
Oh, right.
In this one, she's called Hashemotep, which sounds Egyptian.
Yeah.
Although she's in the Arctic. But anyway. So that was 2,000 years ago. In this one, they only put it back to 500 years because the ancestor, also called John Vincey, is from the 1500s.
Yes, yeah.
Which is obviously... So that's when she dates from as well.
Yeah.
So she's only 500 years old in this film rather than 2,000 years.
Yes.
The good thing... the quite funny thing I thought in the book about being 2,000 years old, it's the same era as the birth of Christianity and Jesus Christ, anyway. And to her in the book, Jesus is, I heard about this up-and-coming prophet. What happened with him?
Well, she mentions him in the film, actually.
I know she mentions Christianity. It's quite a funny line. She says, oh yes, what would you do? Would you spare them? Oh yes, you're a Christian.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure in the film she says that she remembers a man who showed mercy, taught mercy.
Yeah, but she's remembering it as coming from a different culture 500 years ago rather than actually...
Right, yeah,
being a contemporary, as she is in the book. So yes, anyway, John Vincey explains the background to his heritage, and then he dies there. I presume he does. He goes, and that's the end. It's pretty much that.
It's sort of a case of them having their cake and eating it, where he says, I'm a scientific man, so I'm not going to suggest that you're the reincarnation of John Vincey.
Yes.
But,
yes.
So saying you are and you aren't, because he looks exactly the same. I mean, he's basically asking him to fulfill the destiny.
There's the portrait on the mantelpiece, and I think that was intentionally funny.
Yeah.
He goes and stands over next to it and strikes the same pose and the same look. That's quite funny. Yeah,
well, I suppose the point here is that they're underlining the fact that they're trying to overcome death and time. That's what he was it John Vincey has been trying to do, is to overcome death, and as a result he's died, but they talk about man's enemy being death.
The time.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I can't remember the details of the background, to be honest, but they say it's in sort of Muscovy, the north, sort of Siberia. I don't know if that's the Arctic. And they need to get through this Shugal barrier.
Yes.
So off they go into the snows, and this is where we meet Tanya, because they're going on their journey, and they stop at this sort of hut in the middle of nowhere for the night.
Yeah.
And they meet Dugmore.
Yes.
And his daughter. Where's my food? He says.
Yeah. I guess he's sort of like a trader or something, and he interfaces with the natives.
Yeah, but we know right away he's not nice.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the interesting thing is he's not interested. Oh, you'll never get there. I'm not getting you natives. Oh, it's all legends. We haven't heard anything, rather. And then Tanya says, oh, I've heard. But it's not until they produce the gold.
Yes, yeah. Which is interesting, because in all these films so far, gold has cropped up as the thing that drives people to go to these foreign countries.
Isn't it, in a plot? I must remember that.
In this one, though, the main character is saying, we're not after gold. This is just the thing that tells us, that there's something there.
But, of course, there's something that trumps gold.
Yes.
Eternal life, if you're into that sort of thing. So, I mean... We should explain, they've got, in case you haven't seen it, and we're ruining it for you, they've got this little gold statuette of a woman, or like a goddess, in some flames. It's made out of gold. And when Dugmore sees this, he suddenly changes his tune. Oh, I'll help you. Yes. Although he wants, as long as you cut me in with the gold.
He says we're partners.
Yeah.
It's not like he's going to be an employee.
Shades of Treasure of Sierra Madre there, where gold... reveals maybe not the true nature, but certainly another side of
Changes
someone.
Everything.
The Jekyll and Hyde comes through.
In this strange land we saw the flame, and he who stands therein comes forth unharmed to triumph over death.
But John Vinci died there. Why, if he found this flame?
Because he was murdered.
So off they go towards this Shugal barrier, which is this great, kind of like the Lost World. It's this sheer thing that you can't get past. In the Lost World, of course, they find a way up, and in fact, that's another connection. They go across this log to get to it, don't they?
Yeah.
Onto the plateau.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is different. But at the beginning, they mentioned the tale of the servant of... is he called... No, I was going to say, is he called Kallikrates? But he's not. It's called John Vinci.
Yeah.
He defeats and fights a great beast.
Yes.
And they find in
ice,
rather luckily, in the ice, this huge sabre-toothed tiger, a giant sabre-toothed tiger.
I was expecting at that point the ice to melt.
Yeah.
And in fact, isn't it in Ray Harryhausen's Eye of the Tiger? I mean, that has got a saber-toothed tiger in it, I think.
Yes, one of them has.
I wonder if Ray Harryhausen, who obviously likes this film, thought, I want to see that saber-toothed tiger fighting.
Yes. Yeah, let's see that fight, yeah. I mean, that is quite an exciting moment, isn't it, when you see that locked in the ice and the dead servant.
Dead servant,
as well.
yeah. And one thing at this point also in the camp, I mean, generally about Tanya, we get to see she's very meek.
Yeah.
She's bossed around by her father, which I think is one of the important things that sets her opposite to She.
Yes.
Where she has had absolute power for so long. She at one point says, how dare you even think what I don't want you to think.
Right.
Whereas Tanya is very meek.
Yeah.
So she's completely the opposite of She.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the father, he sees, I think, has the servant got a locket or something of gold?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And so he, again...
Yeah, there's a bag of gold spilled, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
Gold coins?
But anyway, he tries to hack into it.
They say don't.
Yeah, in fact, they're scared of an avalanche happening.
Yeah.
So they shout up to him, "You fool, don't do it!" Which is probably the good thing that caused the avalanche, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the rocks come down, and the whole camp is covered.
Apart from our heroes.
Yeah, who are luckily hiding under a thing.
Not only that, but a way is opened.
Yes,
into
exactly.
Into caves which are sort of warmed by, I don't know, volcanic...
Yeah, and this is where it starts to get, you think, ooh, secret, hidden, lovely stuff. So they go through this sort of volcanic, bubbly stuff, and they meet, is it the Armahaga? Anyway, these natives.
Yeah.
This is odd, because... Rider Haggard had some continuity to his sort of background. He knew things about Africa and Arabian history and the goddesses and stuff, and it all kind of works to some degree. It makes sense. But here, suddenly, we're in the Arctic, let's say. I presume that's where we are. Volcanic stuff, fine, that's fine. But then these, what look to me, I mean, they kind of resemble like Incas. I mean, South American,
yes,
whatever. Olmecs or something. Not that it really matters, but I suppose they're an ancient lost civilization. But
Yeah, it's almost like Hollywood shorthand for natives, you know.
yeah, it's just an odd place to find. I mean, I as I say, I don't mind the moving it to the cold north, but it should then be consistent to some degree anyway.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it doesn't really matter. But they've kept in the hot potting.
Was that from the book?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at it thinking that's a very inventive way of killing someone.
It is.
You know, you don't usually, and in fact quite gruesome.
Yeah, so they've got this custom of hot potting, which means heating up an iron cauldron
Yeah.
that they then put on the head of their victim.
Yeah.
Ooh. But that's in the book.
Holly is all the while saying, "Oh, look at this! This is obviously a ritual of greeting."
Yes.
And they say, "Come close to the fire," so he goes along to the fire. And of course, Leo and Tanya back off.
In the book, this is where they meet Ustane or Stani. I can't never decide which one to say. which one do I prefer? Ustane. Anyway, and she claims Leo Vinci for her husband.
Right.
But this doesn't happen here, of course, because there is no Ustane. And anyway, they have a fight. Mm-hmm. When they realise what's going to happen, and then Bellali arrives. Bellali arrives. Yeah,
just when they're losing, in fact, isn't it?
I guess so.
It's one of those rescues from the jaws of death moments.
Yeah.
And he conveniently speaks English.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, he doesn't reveal that straight away because Tanya does this dumb show for him. He badly injured. He need your. She's doing all the hand waving. Yeah. And then he goes. It's a man's swimming. It's the only Tommy Cooper joke I know, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work good here because it's visual. As you can tell, it's hilarious. Yes. Anyway,
and they go through King Kong's gates.
Oh, I missed that. Even though I knew they were in the film, I didn't actually notice it.
No, while they're on the way from the area of the natives, it's only very brief, but. Yeah, there's quite a big moment where they bong a gong or something, and then the gates open and they go through it.
Yes, of course.
It's almost like you wouldn't need that scene, except they just happen to have these gates lying around.
Well, it's dramatic, I guess, and also I don't know. It's you're entering somewhere, aren't you? Yeah. And then you see the valley.
Yes, that's right. And there's a mountain in the middle.
Fantastically done, isn't it? Yeah, it's really.
I mean, that's another moment that reminded me of Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, because there they go into this ring of mountains and there's a pyramid right in the middle.
Here you've got I'm going to have to watch that again because I can't remember that. It reminded me more recently of the Mummy Returns, maybe?
Oh, right.
Do you remember that? Where they go and there's this mountain in the middle. And also, is it Indiana Jones?
I was about to say,
they got a similar thing there as well. Yeah. But so this is the Lost City of Kor.
Yes.
Can you remember, do they say anything, do you learn anything about that? Like, is that her city or...
I can't remember.
I mean, in the book, it's an even more ancient city.
Right.
And Asher, she... lives there, but it's a dead civilization before that.
Oh, right.
I mean, that's part of the great thing in the book is now I can't remember. They all died. I think there was some pestilence, and it killed off the civilization.
Oh, right.
And there's the rich ones there's burial chambers in Kor, and she takes Holly to see them. It's very well done actually. You see like a mother, and she's embalmed with her baby who's also dead, and there's I think there's a woman who stabbed herself or something you can see because her lover died. I might be getting that slightly wrong, but it's something like that. And then the poorer people were just shoved into this pit. So there's this huge pit of the dead of Kor. And during the later sort of mad dance scene, they use the bodies as torches.
Oh.
They actually light the bodies, and it's macabre.
Which the Egyptians did with mummy bodies.
Oh, right.
Mummies' bodies.
Well, there you go. That's Haggard for you.
Yeah. In fact, that just makes me think of the thing that I most remember from King Solomon's Mines, which is where they go into this cave, and there's... I can't remember it now. There's this great big...
There's a giant skeleton.
Yeah, which is almost welded to the table through...
Yeah, through the stalactites and stalagmites.
It seems obvious that Haggard had quite a powerful imagination when it came to images of ancient death.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's the sort of... King Solomon's Mines I love because it's basically just a sort of African adventure. Yeah. Something that perhaps Willard Price would write. But, I mean, it's quality stuff. It's great. And there's actually very little, quote, fantasy in it.
Yeah.
But that's one of the points that, the giant skeleton is not explained. Yeah. And that's brilliant because it's not. Yeah. It's just left as this I don't think it's explained anyway. It's a long time since I read it. And I like that in She as well. It's a backdrop to the story.
Yeah. Gives a real feeling of time.
Yeah.
Ancient.
And you don't quite get that in this film.
Mm.
So, as I say, I don't know if it's explained. My memory's that bad. I only watched it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I don't know what core is. I mean, it's obviously it's ancient civilization. But the thing I love most about this film, apart from I do like the story, is the design. I mean, we've talked about this on Lost Horizon, which also had a lovely Art Deco design to its Lost World.
Yeah.
This has got it even better, I think. It's just beautiful to look at. It's absolutely marvellous. And the costumes are fantastic. The Hall of Kings, which you see later. And I was convinced, I really love an artist called Kai Nielsen, who I think, was he Danish or Norwegian? I think Norwegian.
I would say Danish.
Oh, he might be Danish, yeah, I can't remember. One of those lots. And when I saw the throne and the statues in the Hall of Kings, I thought that throne's got to be Kai Nielsen.
Oh, yeah.
And then I thought, maybe the statues as well, because he did some concept sketches for Disney's Fantasia that I thought looked really similar.
Yeah.
The mountain scene.
Night on Bear Mountain?
Yeah, I think it might be that. Anyway, so I typed into Internet Movie Database, confidently expecting it as I'm being very clever, and of course his name isn't there at all.
Right.
The designer of the throne is someone called, I'm skipping ahead here, but it's called Alex Hall, and I can't find anything else about him apart from he was the art director on the first sound version of an Italian opera filmed in 1931, and then also he was one of the illustrators who, I think, according to IMDb, designed the throne.
Oh, right.
I mean, that's that era. Kai Nielsen is of that era. It's that Art Deco, lovely curves and stuff.
But there is a link with Disney, though. Do you know about this?
Yes.
It's the Wikipedia fact.
Yes. it's probably what the film is most famous for now amongst people who aren't into She and stuff.
Right, yeah. The fact that the design for Disney's evil queen in Snow White came from one of the scenes of She with a black costume and a quite pointy crown.
They've made it purple in the colorization, which actually looks quite good. I think she's purple in the... Yeah. Maybe they chose purple because of the queen in Snow White.
Yes.
But yeah, it's almost exactly the same. And I haven't compared the 2 by 2, but yeah. The Snow White was 1937.
Yes.
But yeah, the inspiration, definitely. There can't be much doubt.
And one of the things about She, I think in the book, is that she wears grave cerements or something, doesn't she? I mean, when we see her first here, she's got a sort of body veil on.
Yeah, well, in the book, she's completely veiled, and you don't see her at all. I mean, in the film, you see her face behind the veil.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one thing that a book can do and a film could never do. In the book, she is so stunning.
Yeah.
There's such an aura about her.
Oh, right.
It almost destroys a man to see her.
Right.
You fall hopelessly in love with her. No matter how strong-willed you are, your heart is totally suddenly devoted to her just from her beauty. Her hair, the way she looks, her white skin. I mean, that's another point about this film, which was the white queen. But you can never do that in a film because you suddenly got to choose a real person. Yeah. And Helen Gahagan is of her time, a beauty of her time.
Yeah.
Probably most people wouldn't say she's a beauty now. I think she's got a kind of what was the sort of Rossetti? Pre-Raphaelite. She's got a slight pre-Raphaelite look to her with the nose and she's strong looking. She does have that. I mean, for instance, going back to the Hammer version, I think Ursula Andress is more beautiful. Yeah. Certainly to a modern audience, and perhaps is more, when I read the book, I think I've got Ursula Andress in mind. I mean, of course, the best thing is to have no one in mind. Yes. It's supposed to come from the book. But I saw the film first. And so, that's one thing. Although Holly doesn't fall in love with her in this. He does in the book.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Leo Vinci isn't necessarily bowled over by her necessarily, so that's fine. You don't really have that.
But of course, when she first appears, Leo's still ill.
Yes.
Holly asks who she is, and she has this wonderful speech.
But who are you?
I am yesterday, and today, and tomorrow. I am sorrow, and longing, and hope unfulfilled. I am Hashamotep, she who must be obeyed. I am
Which is quite like her speech in the book. She's quite purple. her prose.
Well, I suppose it befits her role as a queen and basically as a sort of goddess.
Yes, and also her age. Oh no, of course she speaks English in this. I mean, maybe that's okay because she's only 500 years old. In the book, Holly luckily knows, I think it's ancient Greek. I don't think it's Arabic. I think it's ancient Greek that they both speak. Of course, luckily, Haggard has translated it for us into English. The other thing is she emerges from this wall of smoke, which is quite... That's again the design, really. It's fantastic.
And that's another thing about the veil she wears. It's almost like she's carrying this smoke around with her, you know.
Yes. I mean, so in the book, well, she has to be veiled. It's part of her power. Whereas this, it's not quite the same sort of thing. It looks good.
Yeah, and it also does allow you to have a moment of unveiling, you know, when you first see her. Well, I suppose the plot point here is we learn that she is waiting for... She's convinced that the reincarnation of her lost love, John Vincy, is going to come back to her. And at first she's told some people have arrived and she gets to see Holly. And goes,
Yeah. In the book... Yeah. Right at the beginning, Holly is actually marked out as ugly.
Right.
In fact, he's only ever had one romantic liaison with a woman who, when he lost his fortune, left him because that's all she was interested in. He's so ugly. Bilali calls him, I think, monkey. No, it's not monkey. Is it monkey? Baboon? Orangutan or baboon? I think it might be baboon. It's baboon.
Right.
Because he's ugly.
Right, yeah.
And so he knows he could never have she, but he falls in love with her as well.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Nigel Bruce isn't ugly in this.
So then she is angry that they haven't brought the sick Leo in front of her, just so she can have a look at him. And then, of course, she immediately realises that this is John Vincy returned.
Yes. We've sort of got in this group, you've got your classic setup of adventurers, I think. You've got Leo Vincy as the heroic sort of chin. You've got the wise man, which is Holly,
right,
the sort of mentor.
Yeah.
You've got the girl, which is Tanya, the sort of love interest, the girl. I mean, she says she can get into peril, the hero can foolishly leap in. The wise man fears to tread, of course, and is able to sort of counsel from the sidelines and provide the knowledge. And the whole thing about these lost world things as well, you've got the enemy, and that's we've talked about that being the environment, the sort of natives of these lands, and also some greater power. Yeah. And those seem to be the elements of all these, and it's here, very easily delineated and laid out for us there. But it's an eternal thread almost. Yeah. But it works. Yeah. And they can be in different forms, but I think it's very bare here, and I quite like it for that.
It's very explicit. I mean, another thing that I didn't expect to find in any of these adventure films, and which has sort of emerged through our talking about them, is where people go to, these places where they adventure with dreams, usually unrealistic dreams. They get there and there's almost like a backlash from the unrealism of their dreams. The more they're expecting to become gods and kings, the more they get beaten back.
It's very British, actually. It's don't get, we'll support you, but don't get too high on your high horse.
Yes.
Because look what happens.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm cruel for the sake of cruelty?
Then why do you torture me?
How do you think I rule these people? It's not by force. By terror. My empire is of the imagination.
Yeah, I mean, let's rush through a bit more of the plot here, because we've talked a lot about the background. A lot of the conflict here comes from Tanya wanting to know that Leo Vincy's okay, and she, of course, wants Leo Vincy for herself, doesn't want Tanya involved. And the highlight of the film is the dance scene, where Tanya's unknown to her as Holly is going to be sacrificed.
Yes.
She's hidden with a veil of her, so they don't know it's her.
Yeah.
But before that, they have this dance scene. It was really impressive.
Yeah.
Choreography, the costumes, the set. This is the Hall of Kings scene.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, in fact, I was amazed. It goes on for more than 5 minutes.
Right.
But you don't feel that.
It's a real set scene, isn't it?
I mean, if you think about comparing this to King Kong had a lot of spectacle. Yeah. And this doesn't. But this one scene, the dance, I mean, I don't particularly care for dance.
No.
But I was impressed by it,
It's good, it's well done.
There is one moment where something doesn't work. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yes, I think I know what you're going to say. The lighting of the...
Yeah. There's the sort of high priest goes to the pit of the flame, lowers down a torch. In fact, they lower a man down into the pit.
Yes.
He lights the torch, comes up, and they take this flame, and two streams of people holding these
orbs
or something go to light theirs from the flame. And the first person on the right passes by the flame. It doesn't light, and she goes back. She sort of turns back, and then she realises, I better not do that.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Yes, so it stands out.
If she didn't do that, turn back, no one would have noticed.
No, but it's a natural reaction.
Yeah,
they've left it in, but anyway, it doesn't ruin it.
No.
And there's even a sort of Ziegfeld Follies moment where you look. Is it they're looking up at the pit from the pit, and there's this sort of
all the arms. They're sort of moving their arms, and it's all like geometrical shape made out of these.
That was
dances.
Ziegfeld, wasn't it? That dance, the 1930s. In fact, I should have looked. Oh, that's it, Busby Berkeley. That's who I meant, not Ziegfeld.
Which, of course, we mentioned again in not Raise the Lost Ark, but Temple of Doom, because that had a similar dance sequence. Right
that's
at the beginning,
right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it wasn't Ziegfeld. It was Busby, and that, which I think was the 30s. I should have checked.
Yeah.
Which was first? I guess he was, because he was probably doing it in the 20s actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Leo Vinci realizes it's Tanya and leaps to rescue, and that again I think is that's very exciting suddenly. You said like Kong has got all this action, and this doesn't have that much. There are moments of action. There's the fight with the Amahaga natives. I should compare their dance around the hot pot with this one. It's quite good actually, because they've got this kind of. There's probably just a Hollywood book of native dance. That's one dance, and all natives have to do this. Can you do the native dance, the Hollywood native dance? Yeah, right. You're in. It's quite simple and quite funny in a way.
Yeah.
But and then contrast with this dance, which is actually someone with talent is doing that.
Yes. Yeah.
I forgot what I was saying now.
Talking about the moment when
the action. Yeah, because there's not so much. It's not better at all. I mean, Kong's an amazing film, but it's not worse, is it?
No.
It stands out. I mean, so you got this dance scene. It's amazing because it sits there in the middle, but it's because it's the contrast. You need that other stuff to make this, and the rescue scene where it suddenly all takes off. It's just wonderful. I mean, the other thing, just while we're still in the Hall of Kings, going back a bit, the guy who was lowered down into the pit also swings across the hall. Yes. Shows how massive it is.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's some matte painting there's got to be for the height, but still brilliant.
Yeah.
Anyway, they make their escape and they go into these caves. Oh, there's a scene where Leo Vinci pushes down some fire on the...
Yeah.
And that looks genuinely dangerous.
Yeah, I know there's a bloke at the front in robes who gets...
He catches light, and I presume that was all supposed to be...
Definite fire, flame stunts going on there.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know what kind of protection they had in those days. I mean, now we know that you can do that and stand there for 10 minutes or completely ablaze. I guess maybe they did then.
Yeah.
There seems filming on stairs, because it's the same with Hidden Fortress.
Yes,
that's another scene where I was on the edge of my seat thinking, God, I hope it looks genuinely, where they're all rushing down the steps, it looks genuinely dangerous. But they go into these caves, and there's another great scene where they have to leap across onto this rock, which is like a pendulum.
Yeah.
And when people fall, you can see, I think it's quite well done, even though you can see it, they fall into the matte painting bit, and then they're animated.
Oh, right.
Did you not notice?
No.
Oh, maybe it's not that obvious, but it is actually very seamless.
Yeah.
There's just something about the characteristic of the person changing. It's brilliantly done. They fall. I think it's very smooth. They're animated you can see where they turn into animation is obviously where the set turns into the matte painting.
Yeah. It's an excellent setup because it's just like at some point that this teetering rock is going to fall. Yeah. But they keep it there for quite a long time. The fights where the heroes get close to the edge and then the guards or whoever they are fall over. You think it's going to fall at some point. And it takes a while to do it, but all the time you're sitting there thinking, oh, God.
And in fact, it's when all the guards, there's a number of them have leapt over. So when it's at their most dangerous, it's also their downfall, literally, because there's too many of them for the rock. Yeah. And that's all filmed in long shot. There's no close-up or anything. It's all from a long shot, so you can see the height. It's just the camera sits there and we watch it happen, and it's great. You don't need to have camera angles zooming in and stuff. I'm advocating that because that's also my comic strip style. It's quite sort of a bit like Chaplin as well. You sort of put the camera there and then let the action happen in front of it, left to right, which I think it works. That is from the book in a way, because in the book she takes Job, who isn't in this in the film.
He's just like a manservant.
Yeah. Job, an hysterical manservant. Although it's quite funny when he keeps thinking he's going to get hot potted. Job, Holly and Leo Vinci and she go off on this trek to the flame, and they go into this dangerous sort of cave system, I think, and she makes them Job has to carry this plank, and that's what that's for. They've got to go over this rock. They lose the plank, so getting back is the exciting jump over it.
Right.
Anyway, so that they do use that from the book, although it's indifferent. And then they make their way to the temple where this flame is.
Yeah.
She is already there, and I love this bit. She goes... Just by way, just for us audience, she goes, you came the dangerous way. They certainly did. But did you see the design of the temple? It's like something out of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yeah, very expressionist.
German expressionist type stuff. Crazy angles and stuff. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So this is the flame of life, which they're after is in this temple. And this is pretty much the same as the book. She wants Vinci to step into it. To
become immortal like she is.
Yes.
So they can rule together.
But he won't, so she says, well, if I prove it's okay... And this is the big spoiler. Of course, she does, and ages. So stepping into it the second time, you can't do, obviously.
Yeah, she basically ages. She catches up with herself in time.
In the book, I think Haggard says she becomes this sort of tiny monkey. Pretty much.
So wizened. Actually, there's a bit before the dance sequence, which I wouldn't mind talking about, because it links to the other films. Like in The Man Who Would Be King, you've got contracts, the adventurers form a contract, and it's when it's broken that things become dangerous. Here, we know that Leo and Holly went out to find the flame. Yeah. Basically, there was no suggestion that only one of them was going to go into it or whatever. Right. But there is a point here where Leo says... She has offered me immortality. Yeah. Only for me, though. Yeah. And Holly says, well, you're a fool,
so there is a bit.
Yeah, so it's almost like that point that the contract has been broken. Yeah. And, of course, that's when he basically, when Leo says to Tanya, he's basically saying, I prefer she to you, because she's offering me immortality. And Tanya gets the point to say, you're going to live forever in a tomb, basically. Yes. You're never going to know what it's like to die. You're basically never going to know what it's like to... really love a human being, There's a great bit of dialogue as well, which just made me laugh, where Holly says to Tanya, you're seeing something that no one has ever seen before. Aren't you interested? And she goes, no! It's the way she says no, it's just brilliant. Of course, Tanya getting sacrificed has echoes with Kong as well. Yes. Very much so, where of course Fay Ray is about to be sacrificed, given to Kong anyway. Well, it's almost like if you think of King Kong as the masculine version, this is the feminine version, whereas King Kong is a very masculine monster. Yeah. He's strong. Yeah. She is like the ultimate feminine monster, where she's so attractive that she's perilous. Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, you said that about Kong, actually, the sort of masculine side of it. I think you did anyway. And of course, the book is very interesting, and loads has been written and analysed about Haggard's relationship with women. I haven't checked this, but I think I read a biography of him once where, I may have got this wrong, but he had a doll or something who was called... Yeah, there was a rag doll. She Who Must Be Obeyed. Yeah. Apparently his nurse, or his nanny, used to terrify him with it. Right. That's the whole way of getting him to do whatever he had to do. And so he called it She Who Must Be Obeyed.
What's the use of living 1,000 years if you're going on being cruel and selfish? Is 1,000 years of that any better than 70?
But people would change, grow good.
Has she grown good?
Yes.
Did she let John Vinci escape? Would she let you escape if you loved me?
Tanya, you're not tempted as I am. Think of it. Never to grow old, never to feel age. I can't give it up.
You will live here in this tomb, always young, with her. You will never know her age, no grief. That isn't the kind of love I want.
But yes, I mean, if you read the book, you do start to wonder about, Holly is a woman hater. He's a misogynist.
Oh, right.
And it all stems from him being spurned by this woman who says, "I only want you for your money anyway. Do you think I'd actually marry someone who looked like you?" And he's a real misogynist. Admittedly, it's open in the book. It's not a subtext at all. Of course, Haggard wasn't a misogynist. Certainly, I mean, he was a Victorian, but although he was quite a liberal one. I mean, that's one thing. Having his time in Africa, he was, for the time, quite sympathetic to Africans and so the native side of things.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I say for the time, because obviously he still was a superior.
He was an imperialist, basically.
Exactly, he was. Yeah. But for the time, he was quite sympathetic, and he had good African characters who, worth and merit. You know. But the whole female side of it and the sort of the psychoanalytical side of it, there's a lot to She if you want to get into that.
Well, I think Jung actually singled out She as a book which he said was quite a pure version of unconscious material coming out and being laid bare on the page.
Right, yeah.
But I think even though you could, if you just look at She, the character, you could say it's quite misogynistic.
Yeah.
But because you got Tanya there, I think it's like saying She is the unrealistic dream of the super beautiful, powerful woman. And if you follow that, you're going to die. But Tanya sort of offers the more human, more normal version where you age, and she's not a super powerful queen. She's just a normal person.
Well, of course, that takes us to the end of the film, where you don't see anything of the journey back. After She has died, you cut to the living room where Leo, Tanya, and Holly are living as a happy threesome. Tanya and Holly are married or engaged or whatever. I mean, it very nicely comes from the flames to the fire of the living room. Yeah. And what does she say? The truth of the flame of life is actually in the heart, basically.
Yeah.
It's love. It's love is what the actual thing is. I mean, it's a bit of a schmaltzy moment, but there's truth in it. So yeah, she's all that, as you say, but She, I said Bilali reminds me slightly of Tommy Cooper. She reminded me slightly of Margaret Thatcher. I thought she had quite a lot of... she kept popping into my mind the way... she ruled exactly the same way. Instead of the Almahaga, you had miners. But yeah, have you got anything else to add about the film? I think when we've gone from beginning to end, it's... Did you enjoy it?
I did.
It's an old film, of course. It's not... There are things that are dated about it.
I mean, I did see that apparently it was listed in some list of 50 of the worst films you'll ever see, which I really thought was unfair. I think if you come to it only having seen modern films, you'll probably go... Yeah,
well, there's people who say, well, I'm never going to watch a black and white film. I mean, what a loss as well. So much quality stuff. I can't believe that. I mean... I think there are bits where it dips, especially when some of her speeches, and it's the same in the book, to be honest, they go on a bit, they're philosophical more than sort of adding much to the plot. I mean, it's still fine, and actually there's some quite interesting things to think about from it. It does slow the film down a bit, I think, but that's of its time. But I think the overall impression, I mean, it's got some of the best design and set pieces of any film, even up till now in some ways, I mean, I particularly like that Art Deco style anyway, but it's very beautiful, even now, of course it is.
Yeah.
Maybe even more so.
Yeah.
So the design's amazing, that choreography's amazing, the storyline's good. It's got that Lost World element. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but it is no way a contender for worst.
No, I don't think. I mean, I must say I didn't hugely like some of the acting, but I do really like the story.
Yeah,
and just the ideas it brings up. It's so. I mean, one of the things it maybe wasn't as successful compared to King Kong is because it was ideas more than action. But I quite like that.
Yeah. I mean, She is something I've not reread. I read it once, and I listened to the audiobook once, but it's not like, say, Alan Quatermain. Which I've read twice and would happily read again. And even King Solomon's Mines, I've only read it once actually, but I could see myself reading that again maybe, although there's too many books to read. So, but She, I wouldn't necessarily read again, although I really love the story.
Yeah, well, it's just like, I mean, another thing that links it to, as I said, those classic things like Dracula Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
Whereas they become sort of myths because in their original version they're not quite perfect.
Yeah.
And so they're always having to be redone.
Yes.
And each one's good. You basically like the story that underlies all of them. So you can have any version as your favourite.
Yeah,
it's just a good story.
That's a good point. I used to belong to the Rider Haggard Society, and through them I got them on video. They're in the attic, I think. I've got some of the silent versions. I've got the 1911, but the first one was Georges Méliès did a 1897 or something, French, obviously.
Yeah.
Colonne de feu or something, a column of fire. That was terrible French pronunciation. I'm not even sure I got that right. It is column of fire. And then I think there was a 1908 version. There may have been a 1906, 1908, and then there's 1911, which I've got and seen. There were a couple of others.
In the 20s, wasn't it?
Yeah, 1918. There was a big one in the 20s, 25, I think, with Betty Blythe as She. That's quite good. But they're not as good as the 1935 version, which was the first sound version of the film. And I think the Hammer version, although it's entertaining, isn't as good as the 1935 version either, I don't think.
Yeah.
And there have been other versions as well, and there's been films that are inspired by it. And the same with books. There's a whole slew of She...
Well, Haggard wrote sequels to it, didn't
Well, he wrote actual sequels, yes. And Hammer filmed a sequel as well, The Vengeance of She, which is... I feel I've got that on video. I think it's terrible. Oh God, I may even have it on DVD. That'd be even worse. That means I bought it more recently. When I say recently, probably in the last 20 years.
For completist reasons.
Yes. Well, no, I was very curious to see it. I mean, I was a massive Hammer fan. Well, I still am to some degree, although I really got into it in my sort of early 20s. I'd stay up at 3 a.m.
Yes.
Did our timer not work or something? Anyway, I stay up. I don't know. I set my alarm and get up because there's a time when they're showing Hammer films at 3 a.m.
Is it because you wanted to edit out the adverts?
I'm sure I started the recording and went back to bed. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I wanted to see that. And Haggard wrote... He did an Alan Quatermain and She.
Yes.
So his hero, Alan Quatermain, got to meet She. He did Vengeance of She.
The World's Desire.
I was going to say World's Desire. Is that a She?
Yeah, I only know the title. But,
yeah, anyway, yeah, he milked it, if you like. Did quite a few, but none of them were as memorable as the original.
Yeah.
So yes, have we
Yes.
completed with She? That's good. That was I really enjoyed that one. So we've gone on quite a bit. So I'll just quickly say thank you very much for listening to this. And that's number 9. Number 10 is going to be The Golden Voyage of Sinbad from 1974. Will be our last film, but we are going to do another podcast as a sort of general overview.
Yeah.
Where we'll sort of what we've learned about these 10 films, and also probably discuss a few other things about adventure stories and things as well. So I'm quite looking forward to that. So thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next one.
Yes. Bye.